And welcome to the Atlassian platform track. I'm really excited about this next talk. I'm excited about all of them. I picked them. So, uh, so I'm Sheldon Callahan. I'm with the developer experience team. I see some familiar faces in here. So you guys know the rundown. And at the end of the talk, please fill out our survey so you can let us know how we're doing. That helps us know what we're going to have in the next years. This next talk, I'm really excited about because this kind of gives you a feeling of what you can do as a cross-app experience. One of the speakers has already had a talk here, Francis. But it's going to be two people. So this is Francis and Sharif. Sorry, Patrick. My bad. It's the Brazilian thing. He knows what I'm talking about. So, so, uh, so Patrick gets mistaken for Brazilians all the time. We had a long conversation about this last night. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to let these guys get on stage and welcome them to the stage. All right.
So Sheldon wanted me to share my fun fact. So I'm Sharif. I used to be a product manager on the Confluence team, and for many years the Confluence team used to have this tradition of if you had a baby during a release, you had to raise a ticket on our public issue tracker, jira.atlassian.com. We call it Jack. So I have 2 tickets on jira.atlassian.com and the Confluence project, one for each kid of mine when they were born. And the Confluence team still make fun of me and say, it's the only good thing you've ever shipped here at Atlassian. So off to a great confident start. My name is Sharif Mansell.
And I'm Patrick.
And we're really excited to be sharing with you today a vision for what a cross-product app might look like. A few years ago, I was with my wife in Bali in Indonesia. Who's been to Bali in Indonesia? A few of you, okay. There's no Brazilians over there, so you won't see Patrick there. But, sorry, Patrick. But we were walking down the street. I was walking down the street and was trying to find presents for my teenage boy nephews. I have 3 teenage boy nephews. And they're at the stage of life where they won't wear anything unless it's got a surf brand on it. You know, the cool kids. It's got to have a brand on it. And so I was walking down the street that looked like this, and I saw some surf T-shirts, Billabong and Quicksilver, and I was super excited. I love a good bargain, like $2 and $5 shirts. So I took them, went back to the hotel with my wife, so proud, showing her my proud achievements of what I bargained and whatever. And she's like, they're great shirts. I said, I've got all the Christmas presents and the birthday presents for the next year. And I'm pulling them up, and I'm like, there's a Quicksilver one, and there's a Billabong one. And she looked at the shirt, and she said, Sharif, that doesn't say Billabong. That says Billabang. And it turned out all the shirts were fake, and they completely fooled me. So today, we're actually sharing a whole lot of faked-out concepts. So we had a lot of fun creating this talk, a lot of creative freedom, if you like. So we're trying to paint a vision for what a cross-product app might look like. And as many of you know, one of our company values is open company. And we want to be as open and transparent of you where we might head. And we want to use this talk to achieve 2 clear things. First of all, we want to get your feedback, and we want to be as open as possible so that you can shape the future of how our cloud platform might work. Now, if you're wondering, by the way, whatever happened to those T-shirts that we gave to my teenage nephews, I'll save that for a moment. I'll tell you that at the end of the presentation. So how are Patrick and myself going to share this with you? 3 things. We'll spend a little bit of time level setting everyone on what our platform is, because we're talking about cross-product apps that will be built on top of the platform. And then we'll share some concepts, and this is the visions and the fun concepts we got to draw and make stuff up. And then we'll spend a little bit of time giving you an opportunity to give us feedback. And can I encourage you all to spend some time giving us feedback, because we're here to, you're here to influence us, and as much as we're here to learn from you. So we'd love to hear your use cases. Couple of things to point out. Everything we're sharing today is cloud-focused. That being said, all the feedback you give us, we will work together with the server team, as we always do, to work out how that fits in priorities, etc. So some of it could well make its way into server as we go into it. Now, 2 other things to notice. I'm a product manager, not a great engineer. So I'll focus on the what, and I'll let Patrick here, our architect, he'll focus on the how. Sounds good? Yes? You still with me? All right, we'll get started. Let's first start by level setting everyone on the platform. So across all our products in cloud, what we've learned over the last year or so is that we're actually trying to solve quite similar problems in each product. For example, in Jira, we want to have an editing experience. Turns out so does Confluence, and so does Bitbucket, etc. Same with profiles, search, notifications, and cross-product admin. And those same problems we need to solve in each product. And what we're doing at a very simple level for a platform is we're taking those capabilities away from the product, if you like, and centralizing them into common services. So, make sense? So we have common services across our products. So we'll have a common editor across products, a common profile across products, common admin, common notifications, etc. And that means our products can focus more on their core value proposition, and also we can deliver value, and the products don't have to spend time on this, and the platform teams can spend time on this. But what's cool about this is that we now have an opportunity, because we have common capabilities across products, to build platform-wide or cross-product apps.
And what Sharif just explained for components that we extract out of the products into platform applies to apps too. If you have some shared functionality that you want to surface across products today, you have to build an app for each product. So you build one for Jira, one for Confluence, and so on and so forth. Users have to install them in every single instance as well. And so we want to do the exact same thing as we do for shared functionality in the products and extract that into a single app that can extend multiple products at once. But extending multiple products at once is not the core focus of what we want to talk about today. So Sharif mentioned all the components like the editor, the shared profile page that we extract out and that will appear in all products. And what we're talking about today is actually extending those components and services rather than the products directly. So you provide an extension that works in all editors, for instance, or in all profile pages, regardless of where they appear in the products.
So imagine for a second, I won't get you to do the close your eyes and hold the person's hands next to you, that's a bit awkward. But just imagine for a second we've got the same editor in multiple products, the same notifications in multiple products, the same search, admin, etc., same navigation. What are the things that you guys could build on top of this that could be cross-product? So that's what we're going to do now. And the way we're going to share that with you is just a series of concepts of the different ways you may be able to extend the platform. So let's dive straight into it. We'll share 6 different ways, and then for each wave, we'll dive into what it is, what are the use cases, how you might use it, and Patrick will share what an engineering experience, what a developer experience might look like for each of those methods. So first up, the simplest thing we could do if we have cross-product navigation, that's that blue bar that you've seen in products everywhere, is allow you to extend that so you can navigate to your app. Very simple thing we could do. The second capability we could provide for you is an embedded experience. And just like many of you today use Connect to embed iframes in our products in cloud, we could do something quite similar in all the cross-product properties, such as a cross-product profile screen. The third thing we'll talk about is extending our products by giving us some structured data, then we can render that in different parts of our UI. So you may let us know about different objects in your system, and then our end users can do things and interact with those objects, not in an iframe way in our products, and I'll give you some examples about this later. The fourth way, if any of you out there have ever built a Confluence macro, you could think of, and if we're having the same editor across products, we have a new opportunity here to build cross-product editor-like apps or cross-product macros, if you like. And if we've got the same editing experience everywhere, we'll also need the same way to render that content in all products. So we could have a highlight panel, like in Confluence, when you render some content, and you highlight, you see a little inline dialog. We could have that across product as well. And lastly, a lot of you out there will be familiar with maybe the glance that you've seen in Jira, the right side panel in Jira, or maybe you've seen the new Bitbucket right sidebar. If we had that across products, maybe that's something else you could extend. So we'll cover 6 different ways you can extend the platform. So first up, the easiest thing, cross-product navigation. So we have an application switcher here. That's how you can switch apps in our cloud products. And we could allow you to extend this if you've got a SaaS service, or maybe you've got a standalone product. You can go extend that so that our users can navigate to your app and back into Atlassian. So, Patrick, don't worry, I'll cover the how for this. This one's an easy one. PMs know what they're doing. But this is a very easy way we could do this, like you do with Connect today, and you extend Connect with web items and that kind of stuff. It'll be exactly the same capability here. So the second way you could extend these cross-product properties is through an embedded experience. Now, these cross-product properties will be like a full screen experience of some sort, but it'll be the same no matter which product you have. So in this example here, we've got the cross-product unified profile screen. So Jira won't have a profile screen, which is different to Confluence's, which is different to Bitbucket's. We're trying to put them all into one. And you could extend that like you can with the other products to augment the profile experience with maybe content from your app. So this is Alana's profile screen here. If you scroll to the bottom, let's say, for example, you build a timesheeting app. You could put a little module there to show your end users where they spend time across products. Or maybe you want to build an app that allows you to give like kudoses or thank you to your employees. You could do that. So if the customer has Jira, then they get Confluence one day, the app works in both. It's agnostic to the app that it's in. Or maybe you have a SaaS service. Oh, I jumped one step too ahead, I apologize. Or maybe you have a SaaS service where you can log your leave and travel requests. You could show that in a single profile screen. Now, it doesn't matter if they have Jira or Confluence or whatever. You do it once and it appears across products. So how would you do this? I'll get this one too, Patrick. You just take a break, mate. I've got this covered. But again, it's very similar to Connect. Like you do with your iframes, this would be quite a similar experience. Don't worry, Patrick will wave his magic wand soon and show you some more complex things. So the third way, and this is a new way for you to work with the platform, is send us some structured data. And the idea here is that your app can probably emit some events and let us know of your objects, and then we can show them in different structured places in our UIs. So in this example here, we're in the editor that's across products, and we've pressed the link button. Now what we're seeing here is recent links from your app. In this example, it's your InVision app, for example. They've sent us all the recent prototypes that the user has seen. So you can easily link to the prototypes from your InVision. So if your app has got an object that a user could link to, or maybe you want to send a notification to go to different products, you could send us some structured data, and we could do something with that.
So Sharif mentioned sending us data. That means we would expose a platform API on api@atlassian.com, so it's not a product-specific API. And you would send us an event that might look like the one on the right. So Adam moved a file or created a file in a particular folder in Dropbox. You could let us know about that. The idea behind that is we then take care of distributing that information internally wherever we need it. So we have a recent activity service. That service could listen to those events, sees, Adam touched some file, could record that information for Adam with the URL and the name of that file, and then surface it in the recent links in the link dialog. But there might be other consumers of the same event, so you could imagine that certain types of events that you send us also end up in the timeline of Jira Ops. The second part we had in the link dialog is search. And that's a bit different. We would see that as a cross-product app that is not extending a product, but is actually extending a search service, but the same way as Connect apps work today. So you add a descriptor to your module descriptor, Connect descriptor, say it's a search provider. We can then query all apps that have a search provider, surface them at the top, and when you actually search, we can look up where your app is running, what the endpoint is that we have to call. We send you the search term. You handle that and return us the results that we can then render in the search dialog. So that's a way to extend the link dialog or search dialog as an example.
So the fourth way you may be able to extend the platform is through this idea of editor apps. Now, can I get a show of hands of who here has built a Confluence macro? All right. Half of the crowd. So think of Confluence macros, but we could have them across products. And the idea here is you can enrich the content that the user creates with something dynamic or some bit of logic that comes from your product. So in this example here, we're in the Confluence editor, and we have a very simple poll app. Engineers debating very critical topics here, such as should we use tabs or spaces? And people could poll and vote, etc. Or you could do it in the context of Bitbucket. So someone doesn't like your pull request because you're using spaces, not tabs, and they want to make a decision then. So they put the poll macro in Bitbucket as well.
And before we dive into the actual technical details, when you think about editor apps or macros today, they are iframes. Iframes are very powerful, so you can do anything within an iframe, but they're also a bit problematic. So you need a UI toolkit that you embed there, increases the bundle size. Interaction patterns on mobile are very different compared to web, so they don't really work well on mobile. And also, the web toolkit doesn't necessarily match the native toolkits that we have in mobile apps. So we're looking for a new way to build apps that preserve a lot of the flexibility that iframes give you, but in a way that we can support it in mobile as well. And if you've built a Trello power-up, or if you've looked at how Gmail builds sidebars, you might notice a couple of things that we've just shamelessly stolen from there. So yeah, let's look at the bottom. The core idea is you just provide us a JavaScript file. That JavaScript file implements a certain contract, very similar to how power-ups do that. There has to be, give us an initial state function, and then we provide an abstract widget library that allows us to describe the UI you want rendered without actually doing that by yourself. The next step would be, you give us that file, we package it up with a bit of boilerplate, so we need an HTML snippet around it, we can inject additional libraries, we package all of that up, put it on a CDN that is hosted by Atlassian, so you have versioning for your apps, it's all delivered by the CDN, it's small anyway, distributed around the world, so very quick to load. And where do we load that into? We have a hidden iframe on the page still, so that provides the isolation that we have today in Connect, so that your apps don't conflict with each other, they don't conflict with our code. So we would load your script into that iframe. So what does that have to do with building UIs? We'll see that in a moment. So that script gets called through the iframe protocol that we have today. So it's a post-message-based protocol. We're already doing this in many places in Connect. So we can call that function that is in the iframe, and then you get an opportunity to use that abstract widget toolkit to say, I want to add a section, and then there's a title for my poll, there's a radio group, there's the two options, tab, spaces, some additional metadata. You might add a button to submit it. You build everything and return it to us. And we take care of actually rendering that in different contexts. So we can do that with Atlas Kit for web. We can do that natively on iOS and Android if we want. So by doing that, it gets easier for you to write apps. We can support mobile very easily, and we provide more consistency for our users.
So if we've got the same editing experience everywhere, we'll need to make sure that the content renders the same everywhere. So we'll have the same rendering technology in multiple products. And if we do this, we can have a new plug-in point called the highlight panel. So in Confluence, some of you may be aware where you can highlight a bit of text, and you get a little contextual panel where you can do things like create a Jira issue or whatever it is. The same thing we could do here. So we're in Jira in this example. We've highlighted a bit of text like the TPS report. And if you don't know what a TPS report is, you can look up the term. So in this example, someone's built a glossary of terms app. Doesn't matter if it's in Jira or Confluence. You can look up what the term is. So you can use the contextual content that the user has highlighted, take an action in your app, whether it be a lookup or get some data from another source and mix that with the data that the user has selected.
And again, same idea here as we used before. The difference here is when we call your app, we also provide context of where was that invoked. So we can add the TPS report as text, as a parameter that you can interpret. We give you a token that you can just use to call your own backend or maybe even a third-party service. So we want to handle as much as possible around authentication for you. You would look up that term. In the next step, you create a description of that term definition. You can use our structured rich text format, Atlassian document format for that. So you add a title, paragraph, some text, bundle everything up again, send it to us, and we render it in the highlight panel.
So the last way you might be able to extend our platform is this idea of an interactive glance. Everyone here has used Bitbucket? Is that right? Yeah, most of you? Okay, cool. In Bitbucket, a lot of you may have noticed the new pull request UI has a right sidebar. Or a lot of you out there may already have built apps using Jira's new glance, that right sidebar in Jira. So let's imagine for a moment, like we have for the rest of this talk, that we have a right sidebar in all our products. This could be a way you could extend our products. So this is an example of the Bitbucket one. So what are the kinds of things you could do? Well, you can interact with the Atlassian object that the user is on and do something contextually there. So let's look at some examples. Imagine we're in a pull request here, and let's say, hypothetically, you build a timesheeting tool. You can log on the top right corner, you can log the amount of time the user has spent on this pull request. And that same app could follow you no matter which product that you're in. Let's say I'm in Bitbucket still here, and I will have an app to track some personal tasks or a little task for myself. So I get a list of my tasks that follow me everywhere. Maybe I can also create a task for this pull request. So it's contextually read the object that I'm in this case the pull request, put that in the task description so I can do that. And it doesn't matter which app I use, I'm in Confluence here now, and I can still see all my tasks, or I can create a new task for this Confluence page. So the app follows me around everywhere, no matter which product I use. Now, what's cool about this is that if we have that right sidebar in all products, we could also allow you to extend that same right sidebar in mobile without you having to do any additional work. So imagine here I'm in Jira Service Desk Mobile, and up the top right, you'll see in a second, I can expand the right sidebar. Someone's raised a ticket for a new laptop that they need, or a new keyboard in this example, or a new computer, sorry, in this case. And if I have an asset management app, in this example, it contextually recommends assets for the Jira Service Desk ticket that I'm viewing. But that could also work in Confluence, it could work in Jira, etc. So the apps could, the right sidebar apps could work in both mobile and web. So how would this work?
So with our new silver bullet, we actually do the exact same thing that we did for editor apps. But Sharif mentioned a lot of examples that are very interactive. How would we handle interactions? Because we render it in our host applications, and that's where the interaction happens. But only your app knows how to actually do that. So as part of the UI you build, you could also add actions where you say, give it a name, I add some parameters, and then I add them to some other UI element, for instance, a button that gets rendered in the sidebar. And again, send that to us. We take care of all the rendering of those elements, including the button to assign that asset. When a user actually clicks that button, we can then invoke the action handler that you declared in your app. That gives you an opportunity to then take the parameters that you declared in the first step, do whatever you need to do, for instance, actually assigning that asset in this case. And given that the state of the UI typically changes after such an action, you just return us the updated UI description, and after that we can refresh and update that sidebar view.
So, assuming we have a consistent editing experience, profile, search, notifications, etc. across products, we covered today 6 possible different ways that you might be able to extend the platform. So we looked at navigation, extending the global navigation to navigate to your app. Then we looked at having an embedded experience through the Connect-like iframes, either on the profile screen or wherever it may be. Thirdly, we looked at a new way for you to send us some structured data, and then we can show that in different lists of things. Like we looked at the linking example. You can link to objects from your product, or we could use that in a cross-product notifications experience as well. Then fourthly, we looked at editor apps, the idea of Confluence-like macros, but really could go to any product. Then if we have the editor everywhere, we'll need a renderer that's the same everywhere. So you can extend this highlight panel, take contextual action with the thing that the user has highlighted. And lastly, I think I'm most excited about this one is if we did have a right glance in all products, you could do some pretty awesome things like interact with the object on the left, get some data, put it in your product, and that would work for both web and hopefully maybe one day mobile. So, this is where we need you guys to do something right now. If you can all pull out your phones or your laptops and go to this URL, the biggest thing we really want out of this talk is to hear from you. So we covered 6 different ways you can extend the platform. If you go to this link, we have a survey for you to fill out. For each way, tell us how useful is this method for you. Are there any use cases that come to mind? And we'll use this information to influence our roadmaps and how we prioritize our work going forward. Or maybe you've got some new ideas of different things you'd like us to extend. Now, while you're doing that, some of you may be wondering whatever happened to those fake t-shirts that I gave to my nephews. We did decide to give those t-shirts to my nephews. We were hesitant a little bit in case they found out maybe Uncle Sharif isn't cool anymore, he's giving us fake shirts. But we gave them the shirts, and they didn't really react, and they seemed happy. And so I thought only 2 things. One, they were either really, really polite and just didn't want to call out, hey, these shirts look fake. Or 2, they just had no idea that the shirts were fake. They're not the most politest kids, so I think they really had no idea. So thank you a lot for your time. If you have any questions, I think we've got a few minutes. No, probably not. We don't have any few minutes. Myself and Patrick will be outside. Please, we really do want you to fill out the survey. This is probably the most valuable thing. We would love to hear from you. So thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.